very well and convincingly as an actor, but people would be pissed because a lot of people are waiting on cues from what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
So if you're not saying the words, even though you're getting the point across, it's really hard for people to stay on with you.
Oh, I know.
Which is why I really like improv a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, I like
Yeah.
improv for music and for theater, and it's just like my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, no, I love improvise. I still like testing my improvisational skills. I do that a lot with my one buddy, like my best friend who lives in Edmonton. When we get on the phone and banter, we always answer the phone in as in some different scenario. Like I'll call and be like, "Oh man, I don't have much breath left. I got 2 bullets in my back." And we'll play out this whole scenario, and he'll jump in, and our whole call will be that. And we'll also like talk sometimes normally, but literally, or it'll be just the start of a new song we're creating on the fly.
Nice. Yeah, I really like that part of performance.
Yeah.
With music and with theater or in comedy.
Yeah.
Improv is always fun.
Yeah, definitely.
It was great.
What up, Janice?
Oh, Giannis Pappas, what's up, man?
Evening, how you getting on?
Good. In about 20 minutes, Dal Sue will be coming in to run a convo. This will be his first crack at running one. Oh, Dal Sue, yeah.
He's great at that.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever told us his real name. It's not his real name, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has.
My name is actually Janice, yes.
Oh, yours is.
Yours is Janice, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think Dalsu is Dalsu.
If I had to guess, he's going to be like.
I'll tell you the true story. I'll tell you the true story, right? Janice is actually my middle name, and it is the name that most people know me by. But rather boringly, my name is Paul Keneally.
Paul, yeah.
Paul. Oh, okay.
Paul, yes. My first name
Giannis
is Paul.
I see. Giannis is a middle name. It's Greek, though, right?
It's actually Latvian.
Oh, I knew it was something like that. Okay.
I have 2 middle names. Dean Charles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do you have one of those?
Travis Dean Charles Pangburn.
Is it hyphenated?
I'll tell really quickly why I'm known as Janice is that I grew up on a street where there were actually when I was born I was the fifth Paul Keneally. So the small Paul, tall Paul, every other kind of Paul that you can think of was taken and gone. And then they just decided that my middle name would be my name. So yeah, I've grown up as being Janice, to be honest.
Yeah.
And,
that makes sense.
And James, what's your real name?
Jimmy.
Jimothy.
James.
James is his name.
I know. I'm just fucking around.
Quality biblical name there.
I will say, however, that people see on Discord my name as Janis. The actual spelling of my name is Janis, and I have got so tired of being called Janice.
Well, I think we should just split the difference and call you Janice.
Oh, fuck off.
My middle name is the worst. My middle name is Ronald. So it's
hold on, your middle name is what?
Ronald.
Bruce Ronald Reagan.
Ronald. Oh, well, yeah, okay. I feel much better now because, I actually think a lot of people have embarrassing middle names, right, to be honest.
I'm okay with mine. Dean Charles. I'm okay with that.
Is that hyphenated or one word?
It's two separate middle names, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Very
British. Hold on. Pangburn, does that mean that you are something and then Dean Charles?
Yeah, I'm Travis. I'm Travis Dean Charles Pangburn.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy.
oh my goodness, your family were even more pretentious than mine.
Well, yeah, it's very British to have
It
two
is
middle names.
extremely.
Yeah, like my great grandmother who lived to be 98 was a Brit right out of England. So
Extremely British, man.
yeah.
My great grandmother was Polish, but she was entwined with the
With the Germans? No, I'm
Tsar's
kidding.
family. But yeah, look, this is a different story.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm a junior, so I'm named directly after my father.
Oh, are you? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
same
oh,
name.
hold on, junior,
Mm-hmm.
junior, what?
No, no, I mean like I am.
Bruce
My name
Jr.
is Bruce Junior. Bruce Ronald Wilkie Junior.
Oh, so you're Bruce Junior.
Yeah, I'm a junior. My
Oh,
father and I have the same
that,
name.
that- yeah, that sounds so American.
It is. I wanted to
Did
do a
it?
third, but my wife didn't want to do it. She just thought it was too strange because we're not of royal blood. It didn't make any sense to care.
Oh,
And
my dad landed with Cecil.
that's
Hold
a
on,
good
hold on.
name.
Cecil.
No,
Cecil. If you're British,
this
it's
one is
Cecil, right?
Cecil.
It's
Oh
spelled
man.
the same though, right?
Cecil, yeah, spelled the same. Cecil Dietrich Allen Pangburn.
Yeah.
Oh,
So they
oh my!
they
I felt the pain in my.
they did the same thing to you. The
I
double
felt.
middle
Yeah,
name.
yeah, double.
I actually. I have a feeling of pain in my chest being you. Um.
My dad changed his name though. He goes by Rick, so Dietrich, the
Yeah,
short
Rick.
form Rick. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. See
Yeah,
now you're cooler,
that's
right?
American.
Now you're cooler than me, right? I have a name, Paul Giannis Keneally.
Yeah. J-
It's pretty lumpy. It's yes, I do have like 7 generations of Protestant behind me on one side,
Right.
but it's a shite name, really.
James, do you ever go by Jim ever? Or is you always James?
I go by Jim or James. It all depends.
But do people do call you Jim sometimes?
Yep.
Yeah, I find that so weird that James became Jim or Charles became Chuck. Just think it's interesting.
I thought Michael
I don't
Scott.
know.
I thought
Dick.
I thought Michael Scott officially changed James
And
to
actually,
Jimothy.
to be honest,
Rick,
okay. How about if I was a 6'2" Irish guy who would kick your hole if you didn't call me Paulie?
Kick
Yeah,
your
you'd probably be
hole.
Paulie. You'd probably be Paulie. Kick your hole is a strange one. I've not heard that.
What? There's nothing strange about kicking your hole, right?
Not heard that expression.
I've never
But I'm
heard that.
American. So.
Yeah, I'm Canadian. It's unkind to say such things.
Well, hold on. Well, hold on. I have to ask now. I have to ask the question, right? Do the Canadians or the Americans recognize the expression when you say you're going to kick someone's hole?
I mean,
We know
no
we
one
can put two and two
recognizes that.
together. We know what you're referencing. Like,
Yeah, we get it.
But you don't know it. Oh, okay.
We get it. It's not something people say.
So funny.
oh no, that's just a funny scene that just played out. No, we get it. It's just something we won't say.
Yeah. It's like there are people in the northeast of Canada who are still so conservative. They're like, no, nobody's going to kick any holes here.
No
that's
kicking.
funny.
I would approve
Oh,
it.
it's not nice to kick them. Eh?
I
They might have
would
to run
allow
away
it.
from a bear.
No, don't do that.
No, you might want to run away from a bear, but I'm not going to approve of it. I'm not going to be. I won't allow it.
These Canadians and their silliness.
Oh, sure. Actually, my escape route is Minnesota.
Minnesota. Yeah, they're kind of funny.
Yeah,
They're kind of funny.
totally. If things go bad for me. I'm just gonna like be like, oh sure, yeah, I'm from Minnesota. Why are
Yeah.
you
No,
here?
you got it.
I'm so
You got to
I'm
work
so
on that.
You
man.
got to work on that. It's Minnesota.
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 Yeah, but you know,
Minnesota, eh?
sure, but you need a good quote, you know.
Okay, so it's Dal Sue's turn. Everyone, it's Dal Sue's first night running a convo here.
Oh yeah,
and
Alright.
yeah, sure.
the topic
I,
we're going with is what
I
ought.
totally-
Just wait, Janice. The topic is what ought others do. Is that where we're going with, Dal?
Yeah, so basically, what do you guys think others should do, either for the, well, I guess for the benefit of whatever your moral goal is?
Right.
So maybe I'll ask Janice first, just because I don't see him here often.
Okay.
Yeah, what do you think others ought to do?
Well, I'm kind of like minded to think of Hume, so you know what people ought to do. Is kind of a big question. However, I think we could lay down some certain things.
Sorry, what?
I was just kind of saying, Hume said this, and then I said, I was kind of like quiet.
Oh,
However,
yeah.
What's going on with you tonight, Giannis?
Okay, well, let's,
yeah.
Here.
Sorry to
Here, we'll
Some
let-
new batteries, bro.
we'll let we'll give Janice a break here for a sec.
Okay, fine.
How about we go to Bruce? Bruce, what do you think others ought do?
They ought to be.
James,
They
mute,
ought-
brother.
Yeah, James, you're like cooking dinner or something.
It's karate practice.
They
Goodness.
ought to. They ought to do what they would prefer to have done to them, and better.
No. I have to argue against this because, of course, I'm Irish, so I'm going to argue against this in a very certain way. George Bernard Shaw argued that we should not apply what might be done to us, in that way. Shit, lost my train.
Dr. Salt Bombs on the YouTube chat says, "Who the hell is washing dishes?"
Halfway, yeah, halfway through my train of thought, I lost my train of thought. But I would say that
Giannis, are
when
you
it comes
drunk,
to,
dude?
when yes. What? It's St. Patrick's Day. If you think that the Irish guy that you're talking to is not drunk, you're a fucking moron. But anyway,
Why would a pagan celebrate St. Patrick's Day?
I fucking love Giannis, man.
Oh my god, this is fucking
so good.
killing me.
I come from a land down over,
Oh
and I
my
happen to
god.
be hung over.
Yanis,
my goodness.
Yanis, that was good radio, Yanis. That was amazing.
thank you.
I'm glad I was
However-
accurate in my interpretation of what's going on.
I'm
All right.
Irish at St. Patty's Day. You're a fucking idiot if you don't think I've been drinking.
Oh, you got me.
Okay.
Oh, so good. Okay, so now you're drunk on middle of fucking night, St. Patty's Day, and you're trying to fucking argue some philosopher's point. Continue, please, for the art of entertainment.
Okay, let's.
Sure.
So Dal asked the question to the room. This is a fun day to do this on St. Patrick's Day.
What's the
I
question?
think people have had way too much reefer and way too much to drink.
My THC wine is actually showing up here.
I think Bruce is definitely huffing on a cigar at least. But what ought others do? This is what Dal's asking today. What ought others do? I would say others ought to rely on the scientific method and scientific consensus to give them an idea, at least, of what is going on in reality. That's what others ought do.
What? Oh my goodness, Pangburn, I agree with you. And when you put your glasses on, I actually felt even more enamored.
Wait. What the fuck happened to your beard, Bruce?
That's the main question. People on YouTube can't see our video. But
I shaved it.
Leibowitz.
And I got giant glasses, so I can be an extra in a Scorsese film.
I'm completely on board. But
Giannis, I'm gonna give you a quick break, brother.
Okay.
We'll just give Giannis a quick break.
He is just now Leibowitz. That is all he goes by.
We'll let Giannis grab another drink, and then we'll bring him back.
I'm trying to get an extra in a Scorsese film.
Yeah, you look the part, man.
Mm-hmm. I watched Casino too many times.
Okay,
James.
All right.
Who else has one for Dal? Yeah.
What was the question?
What ought others do? To James.
What ought others do? That one's actually easy. People ought to do. It's a hard way to word it. People ought to do. It's almost like how much wood can a woodchuck chuck? People ought to do what they should do at the time that they find most reasonably sound. It's a hard one to do, but it's almost as in the ought is simply always changing. Does that make sense?
Next.
Meaning fuck your oughts.
Oh my goodness. I love Pangburn. He's just like killing him. He has been laughing himself out of this channel. It's just so good.
Oh,
Hold on. With his
Too high,
Harry
he's too
Potter.
drunk.
No, with his Harry Potter glasses.
Harry Potter.
All right, Giannis is gonna be muted for a bit. He's derailing here. So.
At all.
Well, what does I'm interested to hear what James says. James, what ought one do?
So they should develop themselves in a way that they can achieve I guess from a secular viewpoint, maximum relevance realization.
Maximum relevance realization.
That way they can problem solve appropriately. And then from that, use combination of rationality, intelligence, and wisdom to arrive at the appropriate decision.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've heard it phrased that way. What about you, Desire?
To get shit.
Desire
is going to say one ought to buy GME. One ought to invest in AMC.
Desired, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I had to get out of the store.
No worries. He's running out of the store.
I would say never don't be learning. One ought never not be learning.
Why not
I'll never
always be
stop
closing?
One ought always
Never
be
not make a
closing.
double negative.
Always be
Always.
closing.
Always be closing. You hear me, you faggot?
Always.
Because you're a fucking loser.
That's what he says. All right.
That's what I know.
What don't you understand?
Here's a question for you. I get pinched on St. Patty's Day. Do I deserve to be pinched on St. Patty's Day when I'm not wearing green, but I have this?
Isn't that
What
green?
is that? Anything?
Is that like a green tattoo?
Nope.
No, I
What
don't know
is
what
that?
that.
Oh, it's
Green leaf
clover.
shamrock.
Green leaf clover. First of
Is
all,
it green?
you need to be pinched on general principle for having a shamrock tattoo. That's the first problem.
You're like a basic bro or basic bitch. Pick one.
I'm gonna go with bitch. I would choose bitch on that one.
Do people still do that? I forgot. I wasn't in grade school anymore. People still pinching folks in real life?
Dr. Salt Bombs on YouTube says, I think we need a drunk philosophy day once a month.
Isn't that what philosophy always is?
St. Patty's Day, motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's what it always is.
Just sitting around drunk. Why? Why has this happened to me?
Yeah. It's like,
Why is my life this way?
yeah.
Why once a month? You can go to mass once a week.
Oh,
And if you do it right, you can plan your mass to forgive the sins of the future.
that's right.
I
right.
need to go pee. Why? Oh, shit. That's what.
Yeah.
America. Celebrating a
Get
holiday
a
that's
jail
not-
free card.
Dr. Salt Bombs needs to join us here. You got the link, Doc? Or maybe it's Janice.
Yes.
Salty.bomb.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop him a
Oh man. Anyway, on a side note, I have a fresh drink. Who else has a fresh drink?
I had a fresh toke about an hour ago.
Yeah,
You can tell.
you can tell.
Okay, what
Does that
else?
miss anything important?
I mean, aren't we? Shouldn't we say one ought not molest children? Can we throw that one out there? Is
One
everyone
ought to
okay
be
with
drunk on
that?
St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's like
Well, we're saying what you ought to do, right? Not. I mean, I assume you're gonna. Are we gonna get to the negative? You know.
Hold
One
on,
not
hold on.
one.
Okay,
One ought to not presuppose oughts.
Well,
But they do. It happens anyway.
Yeah, it
I'm
happens
going
anyway. You need to.
on a limb, and I agree with when somebody said, one should not molest children, right? Not a huge extension of your morality. It's like you have to slightly step.
Dr. Salt Bombs, welcome.
Yo, what up, salt bombs?
I don't know if he's got he's got to turn his mic on. He's probably new. We got a noob. Got to put him through the,
he's probably
the
nude.
gauntlet.
Yes, he is probably nude.
You know what? Dallas is probably all like, man, fuck this. This whole hour, this whole show is supposed to be my run, and they're just fucking being drunk, unruly motherfuckers.
St. Patrick's Day, you know. Well, I'm curious. Did Zelsu answer his own question yet?
Yeah. I want to hear Dal's answer.
Yeah, if we're not abusing children right now.
Mine.
Okay, Janice is getting the server mute. He can't stay on track. Go ahead, Dal.
I was thinking others ought not associate. What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for? Others ought not.
Sir?
I had it written down. I forgot where it was.
Associate? Name?
Let him think about it for a second. Gripes.
Everyone's on crack today. It's hilarious.
In the meantime, are you even old enough to drink?
What? I'm 25.
Oh.
Yeah, he's old.
Shit.
Ability to
Right
grow
above the bar.
about 6 months ago.
I was gonna say Dal. Yeah, Dal strikes me as a guy that's going to still look very young when he's old.
Very old when he's young.
What's that?
Did he answer the question?
Others ought not. I can't think of the actual terminology that I wanted, but they ought not demonify other groups.
Demonize.
Demonize, yeah.
Yeah.
Not.
Or minimize other groups?
What am I thinking? Come on, help me.
Marginalized?
Others ought not identify with the group they're a part of. There we go.
Yeah, I like that.
Why?
I actually had a conversation about that the other day. That's good.
Because it leads to people overlooking the individual and thus losing the ability to empathize, because that's who we empathize with, and instead they go after attacking the group or the other side. So if in politics, for instance, on Twitter, if people instead talked to each other instead of making vague points or digs at the other side, there would be progress instead of just screaming and yelling and crying.
Okay. I'll wait.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was actually talking about this the other day as far as group identity. And so this is more, we were having it more in the Christian context, but it still applies. People say things like, I'm a gamer. Like, your identity as a gamer is pretty sad. That's not an identity you want to go forward in life with. I'm a gamer. That's not an identification.
See, Bruce, I would make here. I want to say something about that.
It's not an identity, though.
I think that is a better identity than wearing your.
100% a gamer first and foremost.
Okay, just one sec. I just wanted to say something. I think that is a more useful identity than race. Do you agree?
No,
because doesn't it have some actual information there? Because race just doesn't give you anything.
Yeah. Wait, race gives me what does gaming give you? Who doesn't like playing video games? It's retarded.
No, some people don't, and some people actually don't.
Come on, man. You just haven't played the right game.
I agree. Really quick psychological profile of someone.
I can answer that. I can answer that.
But I'm talking about the game. Say not like I play Mario. Saying I'm a gamer is just too broad. It's just as broad as race. It's the same thing.
Oh, I know. So you mean like like when people use it as
if you have somebody who enjoys the same sports as you, it has the same things of saying, hey, there's a whole culture behind me of which I enjoy, and I can't speak on that in a very short term. So I just say I'm a gamer. To say I'm white has no like what's the point, right? I'm white, therefore what?
They both are too broad. Right.
I agree they're both broad. I agree they're both broad, and
to be broad.
I would like people to just wear their fucking names. Like that's enough for me. And then like sure, maybe you're homosexual, heterosexual, maybe you're a gamer, maybe you're this political radical and that political radical. I don't care about that other stuff. Like I hardly can remember people's name.
I didn't want to get into a rabbit hole on this,
Pangburn, and maybe we'll wear sashes and shit like that.
Fuck yeah, and then we'll start calling ourselves the something group.
Yeah, I just didn't want to. I didn't mean to derail that much. Sorry.
No, I think it was.
I mean, group identity can be useful, right? Like it can be useful to have a group.
I just want people
or a group that
labels
that you can associate with.
No, but
the issue though is when
it
becomes too broad, or there's always too much to some things. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing.
Well, also grouping and title grouping introduces the graph of efficiency versus accuracy, where you can be accurate and not as efficient, and you'll have to declare all these things that describe you, but that'll be very intricate and take a while. Whereas you can be efficient and say, I'm a gamer. However, it may not be as accurate in describing you. So you have to always be aware. It's really contextual in what you say, whether you're a gamer or, I played this game, this way, and this way. So I'd say it's more contextual which one you
relevance.
I'm a gay.
So it deals with relevance realization.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys feel free to turn on your video devices. Your video devices are not live on YouTube, but your voices are. Just for anyone that's new to the room, whenever we're in a live room, we are live.
Live, nigga.
What up, Kevin?
So what exactly? The question I have is, if someone identifies as something so broad, so here's the bigger question is, are people identifying with something so that they're assuming all of the things that they like about the group on themselves, but only the good things, right? They're not interested in identifying with the things that may be poor characteristics. They'd like to cherry pick the good characteristics. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, that's going to naturally occur, but it does give you something to operate off of, to go, okay, so this person operates under, let's say, the bunch of people, right? So, like, they're white. So now we have a baseline for what we think that looks like. And it's just a heuristic. It's nothing. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, stereotypes are useful. I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, it's a survival technique. But it still begs the question, why are people identifying with the group?
Because it's useful.
Right, but that's what I'm trying to say is, to what end? Is it to get people to accept you, not accept you? Do you see what I'm saying?
Bruce,
There's all sorts of pieces of
watch
that,
your words carefully.
Well,
why?
Why?
James.
What?
Me?
Yeah, what were you just messing with? Just playing
around.
What?
I knew you were breaking. I knew you were breaking
You're
down.
absent-mindedly playing with your guns. You were saying it. I think you were clearing it or doing a safety check. I think you were clearing it or doing a safety check.
Oh,
I disassembled it.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see what you guys were saying.
How about no to the mixture of guns and alcohol? I don't know.
Probably a better idea.
Cars and alcohol, guns and alcohol.
That goes against like all of the South.
This is where we're gonna have the pot smokers arguing with the whiskey drinkers. I love it.
You're damn fucking right.
What do you do if you're in both?
How many drinks does it take?
And if you're both, just get the fuck out of here. No, I'm kidding.
Crack is good gun safety.
Clark Davidson says this is fucking awesome, better than Stern. Ladder maker to have people that you can relate and understand. Very nice, Ladder.
Well, ladder maker, you just missed me messing around with a pistol, disassembling it, just reassembled
This should be incentive for you to join.
Let me disassemble this pistol.
This is the incentive to join the Discord, because you don't get the full effect on YouTube.
That is true.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that. I know. Well, we're not on screen on YouTube, I guess. I know another guy got video flagged because he was cleaning a rifle on his YouTube stream. Apparently, some places they don't allow that.
Well, well, what happens is that, because even some of these gun channels, they do sell advertising to those channels, but it's not everyone.
It's not family friendly, or the advertisers don't want it on their platform.
Right. It's only some advertisers will advertise there, but they still do have advertising. But it will get flagged for that.
You're right.
I wonder what Kevin Chaos has. Dal, you want to hit him with your question?
Yo, Kevin. What ought others do, in your opinion?
Yeah, I thought there were some really good answers earlier. I would say that others ought to be more tolerant and more open to understanding other people's positions, especially those that are contrary to theirs. I think that's always important.
I have a question. Wouldn't a good position as well, kind of going in line with what Kevin's saying? By the way, hi Kevin. Wouldn't it be best as well to say that we ought to give up one of the greatest pleasures of being a human being, which is the pleasure gained from bitching and moaning.
Yeah,
is that a pleasure?
Mm-hmm. That's why cussing actually takes away pain. Like breaking the rules. You feel like you're breaking decorum, and so you feel like you're getting away with something, and it releases a euphoric feeling.
Shenanigans.
Oh,
science
shenanigans.
I'm not sure who brought it up earlier, but somebody was talking about like self-identifying as a gamer and how that differs from identifying with like your race or religion. I guess I was wondering what you think about people who identify by their profession. Like you meet them and hi, I'm Bob, I'm a painter. Do you think that really like sheds light onto or insight onto who a person really is?
No, it doesn't.
For sure.
It doesn't.
Not only that, if you identify that way for too long, you attach yourself to it, and what's going to happen is when you move on to something else, or you move whatever happens, you run into a meaning crisis.
Yeah, I agree. That's the problem. Yep.
And so you have. I think so. Really, an odd question here is: should we identify with things, or should we find a higher value that we identify, like that can help us find meaning? So, like, we have all these different aspects of our identity because we can sit here and list off all the adjectives that make us who we are. For example, so capitalist, gamer, reader, logistician, leader, all these other things, right? But family man, but all those can go away at some level. So you have to form the commonalities amongst all of them to one higher function.
Agreed. Yeah, if you identify as a gamer and you lose your digits or your sight, very hard then to continue that identity.
No, it's not. I play chess.
No, but
I guess I see it differently, where it's like if you need these identities to identify a person, but you also don't judge the person or
you got to make the Venn diagram.
Yeah, but okay, go ahead. Keep going. I'll answer
stereotypes. And you can explore the stereotypes of a person to have an art of good conversation, like what kind of games are. Oh, have you ever heard of this game? Or what's really interesting, as I saw with gamers, is this might happen the same way as somebody identifies with a lot of things. It's like their profession or their religion, or they're not as prominent with race just because we're just such a hodgepodge of people these days. But I think it is important. I think it's absolutely important because it's really neat to understand who a person is as you get all these identities in a row and you realize, oh, I'm a gamer in a heavy Mormon church, or oh, I'm a BDSM practicer, but I'm also a Sunday
Leisure Suit Larry
teacher or some shit like that. And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, it's really cool to see the multiple things. So it eventually reveals the character of who they are as these identities are continuing to move forward, and you understand the inner workings of their brain.
That's intersectionality in a nutshell. But also, what I was going to say is the issue is not. So when somebody is choosing to identify, they are already accepting the stereotype and using it as the same way that you're saying we shouldn't. They're doing the thing you say we shouldn't do. By applying the identity to themselves, they are taking on all of the things that come with the identity. Otherwise, you would apply something of higher value than the superficial identity itself.
But the issue is you need these identities, though.
By choosing a term to identify yourself, you are accepting the stereotypes voluntarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care what people fucking think about me, but if you understand I'm a gamer, you understand what I'm talking about behind me. Just like I said, I'm a fucking football enthusiast. Okay, then you get that I might watch SportsCenter. You get that I might have a favorite team. You get that I understand the sport and the contact because I'm enthusiastic about it. It's just a quick blurb that I don't have to sit here and go, I enjoy a thing called video games. Here's the games. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to say I'm a gamer gives you an understanding into my world without having to fucking have a huge conversation about it, unless you're willing to. If you got I smoke weed. I call myself a stoner as I'm talking to professionals across the table who would look at me and be like, "You're a stoner? Oh, I wouldn't trust you with my business."
But the only reason somebody would say that is the reason why you would choose the term stoner is because it has presuppositions associated with its definition. Otherwise, you wouldn't use the term.
I just don't care. I literally use that term today.
That's neither here nor there. That's of course. Well, if you don't care, then the conversation's over. You know what I mean?
There's plenty of terms.
That's what I'm saying. It's just break that shit.
Go ahead, Dal. Dal, can you say again? I didn't.
There's a lot.
It's like Hollywood Squares. Go ahead, Dal.
There's a lot of terms out there that are used against their connotation. So, like a name that's meant to, hurt you, and you'll wear it as a badge of honor, and you'll be the warthog in college, and that'll be your nickname or whatever the thing is.
Yeah, but the reason why that happens is because there are stereotypes that are proven useful at some point.
Yeah, stereotypes are useful, but they're not accurate, I think, or either they're precise and not accurate, or they're accurate and not precise. I forget.
They're not precise. They're not precise, but if they weren't useful, they wouldn't have been coined. They weren't accurate in some way depicting some sort of truth, they wouldn't be a stereotype. You know what I mean? You can't have a stereotype without some truth to the claim, because otherwise you'd be speaking nonsense.
Yeah, stereotypes are very useful for getting a quick, low-resolution picture of, a situation or a person, but they're, not good for actually making a final judgment on something. And they're probably unfairly demonized. People that use stereotypes are probably unfairly demonized because we all do.
Right.
In many ways.
Right. I agree. I think they are a utility that is a part of human nature. That's making sense of something in a short period of time.
Yeah, and how much energy do you have to put into analyzing a situation to make a good enough decision? And stereotypes are something that in some situations can allow you to make a good enough decision without very much information and very much energy expenditure.
So fun fact, I was actually talking to Janice about this earlier, and I said this is kind of interesting about the internet, because I actually get to judge somebody off the character, what's coming out of their mouth and the quality of the conversation, rather than meet somebody physically, right? All you do is hear them, almost like through a phone as well. You kind of do the same thing. But if you meet somebody subconsciously, and you can actually see this, and this is psychologically proven, you will start to judge somebody in 5 seconds, and then you'll start to make decisions about who they are as a person, or stereotypes about them, in 15 seconds. That's how fast the human brain works to make sure you're comfortable with talking to a person. So it's really, really quick. And then you have to now mentally backtrack and start breaking those stereotypes. So it's interesting how the brain works on that. You could sit there, the cows come home and be like, I don't fucking judge people. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Yeah, of course you do.
Innate.
Cool.
I mean, the way to probably break that is to change your types of questions. A better way to probably change that is like asking why versus what, right? So like, why do you like to play games? Why do you like to do this? And then that might help break out and personalize and create that individual connection in order to find some deeper, more relevant meaning to their stereotype.
Boom.
Why are you a gamer?
To figure out my life.
Yeah, but do you understand that, like, well, it depends on the situation, but the question itself can be seen as an attack. If you were to ask
a microaggression?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Oh man, I hate that shit.
What ought others do?
That's a good question. I would say that we ought to we ought to second guess the stereotypes that we've applied when making more complicated decisions, and ask other questions, ask other deeper questions. That when you have to deal with an individual rather than a group of individuals, can fully give you information about what I'm just talking in general here, so it's hard to kind of. But if you have a group of individuals that you have to make a judgment about, the stereotype about what the group tends to do is more useful when you're dealing with an individual. Realizing a person ought to realize that there's more variation within the group than is readily apparent, and get to the bottom of what the individual really is, and treat each individual as they deserve, rather than as their group associations would first lead you to believe. Did I articulate that well?
Yeah, I think so.
You win, actually.
I think we're kind of touching on I'm kind of like on the nature of concepts in general, though, because you could say that your concept of a chair is a stereotype, and you ought be more open-minded about what can and can't be a chair. So like how far should we extend this sort of thinking? Because I tend to think that we're hitting something deeper than just the nature of stereotypes, but the nature of identifying groups of things in general, right?
One ought to breathe, eat, and fuck.
Well, I think that I think
you can take it to the basic rudimentaries.
I think it's what we should be focusing on is not the specific things, but the mechanisms in which we're operating with, and which ones ought to be the ones we should be using, and what are we basing that on? And I would say
learning is interesting in the analogy to the chair, because the concept is like anything could be a chair. I mean, the idea is that it supports you when you sit, right? Like, so
it means get out of the box and change your perspective and allow other perspectives, not segregate them.
Chair is a word that we agree on that thing being, and it can change. It's not a problem. It does change.
Yeah, but you guys, there's also when we're thinking about language, like if you point out a rock that someone's sitting on, we're not calling that a chair. We're calling it a rock that someone's sitting on, or someone's taking.
I call it a chair.
See,
it's shaped like
next chair you got.
But if you point at that rock and you say that's a chair, if you're talking in the realm of what is, you're just wrong. That's not how we define what a chair is.
No, not actually. If I'm out in the middle of the woods and there's a rock, and someone says, I need a place to sit, you have a chair right there. That's the rock.
That's what I'd say.
So if you say, if someone says, but we're saying pull up a stump, not pull up a chair, right? Like
no, I say pull up a chair. There's your chair right there. It's still correct.
It is.
So if you say bring me to the chair store.
What if they had a chair made out of a rock?
No, I'm not saying a rock chair couldn't be complete. I'm saying a boulder on the side of the fucking road isn't a chair, or we're using words with no fucking usage.
I know, but where Dalsu's coming from is that we have to agree on what we're calling it, and so people are going to look at that and say, "Listen, if we're using the same terms, right? Then there's no conversation." So to say, "Well, that is a chair," doesn't mean that is a chair. That means the word we're using are associating with that thing over there.
Right.
Well, I didn't want to derail, but I felt like it was speaking more to the function or purpose of a thing when we're talking about stereotypes about people.
Right.
Like it's more helpful to identify what type of person they are rather than these superficial qualities, right?
I wouldn't even say that.
I need a drink.
Same with the chair. I mean, does it serve? What function does it serve? Is ultimately the question.
Well, yeah, and there's a reason why.
There's something else that I would love to dial in on too. Is the idea of care.
It serves for comedic relief under fat asses.
I got a fat ass.
Yeah, so I think everything has sort of a group identity. I mean, just along the lines of what I was hearing when I first stepped in here, there's group identities, right? So everything has a group identity, and associating an object or a person with their group identity has a certain amount of utility. But I think we ought to delve deeper and find out what the individual identity is. Whether it's a chair or a rock, that'll give us a lot better resolution picture of what's really going on in the world. Than just looking at the first level of the identity of the object.
Exactly. We should. I think we should take the person for their individual qualities, just like whatever we're using as a chair, we should take for its individual qualities, like being a rock. That might be one of the qualities of this chair.
Yeah, or if it's a particularly artistic piece of chair, maybe you sit there and appreciate it for its the carving or the adornment.
Don't chair.
All right. I'm gonna well, no, I should expand on the question. So instead of doing what ought others do, I'm gonna add a goal. So what ought others do to benefit humanity as a whole?
Seek to maximize.
They should align themselves, act as individuals first.
Join.
They should understand what they believe and why, or epistemology, with a logical foundation for such, so that when they make claims about what people should be doing, they have a foundation on which to stand, as opposed to some subjective idea that might change tomorrow.
I would say that they ought to join and never separate.
And that's the opposite of what?
Go ahead.
They ought to join humanity and not separate.
Always be learning.
Separate.
I think this is answering with my last answer, because I think it fits better. But I think people should not personally identify with their groups. I think that would allow for what little violence there still is to go away, and it would allow for a calmer dialectic to develop between people.
So when is it? So when do you group a million things? I am particle. I am species. I am human. Where do you stop?
I think it's generally fine to stop at I'm me. Like that's all. Like the concept of self is to each individual whatever it is. So you should identify as whatever self you identify as and work forward.
So we are Legion?
Yes.
It would be...
Yes.
Sure, however you want to define. Like, I like to define my sense of self as that which lies within my skin. Because I think that encompasses everything that I need to worry about in my day-to-day life. Because
where does your skin stop and not your skin start?
The issue is you need groups as well to thrive at some level. Like you need groups, so you're going to attach yourself to some group or some group identity at some point in your life, if not all of your life, to a point where even you are changing. There has to be some way you're aware of both the group and yourself.
Zard, I wish I had some fake feet so I can just hang them right here. That'd be so perfect.
Oh, Dell's above your head.
We're not all the same. We're not all the same Hollywood Squares. Shit.
Not the same.
Oh, here you go. We're not all the same. Damn it! That means I can't transfer things.
I'm seeing it in fours, rows of 4.
I have it like in a vertical window. So we're all on top of each other.
There you go. You just want to hand somebody something. You're like, here you go, man.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I get that back.
We need to someone had the same object as me, like
Bruce.
The Brady Bunch. Isn't that the problem, though? We don't listen to the many. We only listen to the one.
I find that to be the only way to listen to the many with any coherence. If you don't listen to the one, the lot of the many is diminished by the of the one. So you're only as good as the weakest.
What about
It's the idea of a mass being led by a mass of zeros led by one, which is tyrannical.
Well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So it's better to become a one, but when you're operating in a group, you have to be 1 + 1 + 1, and so on and so forth, versus the 1 + 0. Because no matter how many zeros you add, you'll never equal 1. So there's also the responsibility then for the ones to help make zeros into ones. And there's a transformative process that occurs there.
So I'm just saying you shouldn't personally identify with the totality of whatever group you're a part of. So you should definitely associate yourself with groups, but you basically, you just shouldn't say, I am a Republican, because that means when someone says Republicans think X, you are suddenly like, I don't think X. And that becomes...
That doesn't matter. It's still useful for me to align myself. And let's just say this, for example. I am a logistician. Okay? So there's a lot of goods and bads there that come with that, right? But it's also needed in order to find other logisticians or in order to find other people who need my services. So even though it's a generalization, it is still required.
Yeah. You could also, if you're caught on language, you can weasel around it, but I tend to use language as a tool. So I'm fine with saying I am you said logistician? I don't know.
Logistician, that's a logistics. Someone who deals with logistics. It's pretty much everything in your house, your clothes. There are the people who get those things to you.
Okay, so yeah.
UPS, Amazon, etc.
You can say I am that. But when you say that, what you're saying is that is your profession. That's what you do, because it's not an actual part of.
No, but it is a part of me because it's an identity by which I'm functioning with, because it is.
So you are being only a logistician right now, right this moment. You are only being a logistician and nothing else.
Sure, let's use that right now.
I'm saying you can't have this conversation anymore. You need to only deal in numbers and start moving things, and that is it. That's what Dow's trying to get across.
Desire. You're reducing this to absurdum, which is fine. I'm willing to play the game, right? Because you've also alluded to the same thing, right? What I'm trying to point out is, you have to have these identities in order to operate in the world, because you have to be able to align with people, right? And find other people like you or who are in need of your services or whatever the case may be, because it is a source. That's why the identity politics is so, I'm not going to say useful, but it's there. It's present. You do need it. You do have to identify with the group.
So no,
nobody said that. That wasn't the point he was making.
Yeah,
that's the point I was making, though.
We agree with that. Everybody's agreed with that, so we moved on.
James was just reinforcing that point. Go ahead, Del.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you have something?
What I was trying to get is, what I was trying to get at earlier was, if everyone's going their own way, it doesn't function well. So you must have a higher purpose as a group to move together for some quality goal, whether it's humanity or even logistics. You can't, like in logistics, for instance, you can't necessarily work as an individual on that. You're going to have to work with everyone. And so, but you all have to have some fundamental pieces of your being, existence, and understanding of what people ought to do as a group in order to make progress. You can't do that with everyone going their own way. So in order for people to go away together, there must be a foundation and a fundamental that everyone agrees upon and acts with.
I just want to get 7,242's take. 7242, we haven't heard from you yet. What do you think of group identity? If you're interested in weighing in.
You referred to them as a binary code, too. Number 7242, what do you think of group identity?
They're from my server, so they might...
okay.
Earlier to me, they might not talk.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
So aren't we all not just associated with one group, but sort of we're each a different stack of things. So you might be a logistician, and you might be a project manager, and you might be a people manager,
and a mom, and a dad, or a brother.
We're all parts of mini groups, and we're also stacks of different things.
We are the middle of the Venn diagram.
There has to be something that holds that. There has to be something that holds that together, because they're so disparate in their functionality, meaning, stereotypes, associations, in all of those identity groups. You either acknowledge every piece of that identity group and you're basically spiraling into chaos because you can't unify those, or you have to have some glue, fundamental, that transcends all of those group identities.
But we're always part of each other, right? Like, we're never not part of each other. Like, if you believe in evolution, you believe in Stardust, you believe in whatever.
But what does that have to do with anything?
It's important to have group identity with the understanding that you're also individual, right? So it just feels like group identity is great. It's one of those things that could just be used for bad and used for good. It's important to have both. I'm tired and I've been drinking. Shut up.
So it sounds like you need to have some form of some software, right, or process that enables you to sift through the crap. And it's not skepticism, Travis. It's just not. To sift through the crap and find something.
Learning.
No,
that's what learning is. That is learning.exe. Learning.exe is how you get there.
I can learn trivial facts desired and has no meaning on life.
Why are you assigning learning only to trivial facts? So learning to walk is not learning? Learning that the stove is hot right now.
Okay, all right.
I'm not talking about academic. I'm talking about all intake of information.
All intake of information, you can't do that. You literally can't intake everything.
But the question is, like, what does it mean?
You're always intaking information. I never said everything. I said everything you intake.
Yeah, but what is that?
How you process?
Can you cease to be learning then, ever?
No,
until you're dead. Right.
Yes.
So
you can decide that the changes are all done being made, and you stick on. I'm a Republican.
But that's
believe
what
what Republicans have. Not I have these beliefs that are
But
similar.
that isn't
to
what
Republicans.
you were saying, though. You were saying we're always learning to walk. Yeah, exactly. You're learning every day, every minute. There's something that you have to do.
Yes, and you should always be striving to learn.
So everyone's doing that. They don't want to.
There's a lesson to be learned in every situation you're in. In every moment of your life, there is something to be learned. Don't do that again or do that again. That helped me or that hurt me. That increased my output or that decreased my output.
You must always be learning, or you must always, have a passion to learn. Always learn. Always learning. Every time you're awake in the morning, you are learning. What you should have a passion to do is to change your fucking opinion. That's it.
Why?
Because as the information comes in,
It's my opinion that 1 + 1 equals 2. Should I change that opinion? It comes to a point where you have to accept the opinion as true.
Yes, when you find out that 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, okay.
But that's a fact, that then. And so you're stating a fact. So that's not. But your opinion, but your opinion could be. What?
You can't. There comes a point where you stop learning certain things. Once I have learned how to add, I'm done learning how to add, and I have to learn the next step because I have already learned it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're always learning. Okay, you're always learning. I learned today that the opinion I had on this person, right, might not reflect the facts that are happening, and that's okay. You learn that. Opinion's going to stay the same, and that's the ego right there, right? That's the fact that you're not willing to change your opinion, even though the facts clearly state that you're fucking wrong. And so that's what I'm saying is people don't do that. They're always learning, and it's nothing to do with you desire. Don't get me wrong. It's just that it's something about that term. Like it's like we're always learning. We always need to learn. We enjoy that. We have a problem with failure for sure, but people's egos get in the way of changing opinion. You should always be willing to change your opinion. You should always be willing to change your opinion down to the hardest, most sound structures. You should be willing to change your opinion. You should have your fucking cage rattled and your foundations shaken, and then your foundations strengthened. That's how it should work. We're always.
That would be what I would call learning.
Coming in. And that's okay if you want to call that learning too. It's just so much more to that, because I can learn about a lot of things and still have the same fucking asinine different.
If you still have the same asinine, then you haven't learned. You heard the information and rejected it.
Learning is so subjective, man. So subjective.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not. Yes, we all learn 1 + 1 = 2, right? And that's an apparent fact. Yes. And that's the basic rudimentary. But when we all learn about how to have an opinion about humanity and how to categorize people and what it's like to be a gamer or what it's like to be a humanist or what it's like to be a Christian, then the opinions go fucking out like crazy. And if you challenge someone's opinion on it, their foundation shakes.
Let's hear.
And how dare you even come close to their foundation and they get offensive?
Let's hear from Chick Vicious. Today we got what ought others do, Chick Vicious?
What ought others do regarding the... I was on the YouTube stream for a little bit, so we're still on the identities.
Yeah, I mean, we can go there, or if you want to take it somewhere new, but just when you hear that, like when you think of like, okay, what should everyone else be doing? Where does your mind go?
It sounds like everybody's on the same page, that we all kind of wish everybody would find a way to be open-minded. And it's such a cliche. I know. We're just running into walls left and right over these categories.
Mm-hmm.
And categories are there as shortcuts. They're just really heuristics for us, right? To be able to interact in the world in a much more efficient manner. And they intertwine at times. They're weighted in ways, they have levels, but I don't know. It's all. I have this feeling that we're kind of approaching life. But you know how when you're in a car and somebody cuts you off, it's just so easy to demonize the other person. You don't know who they are, what gender they are, anything, what they're doing.
Yeah.
They cut you off. They're just an asshole. That's all you know. And it's so easy to just throw the finger and honk your horn and be absolutely just want the person to burn up. And it feels like we're just applying that to life right now. And I don't know if we're just not paying attention. Maybe we're all just kind of on a level of distress. We don't know what to do. But if we could just stop and breathe and realize that that's happening.
I want to weigh in just a little bit on that, to play a little bit of devil's advocate, but also just be the crank guy that I tend to be sometimes.
Fair enough.
So I understand that, like, people will be in the car or whatever might happen. And you'll say, well, we don't even know that person, etc. But the action has occurred, and the action is objectively viewed. So if somebody does something wrong or poorly, you don't have to necessarily know anything about that person to make a judgment of whether or not the action itself was justified, wrong, or requires response. So that, like, if someone does something, I don't have to know their life story to know that something they did was reprehensible.
But that doesn't make them an asshole.
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that their response is required. Their response is required to situations regardless of the identity of the person.
Yeah, go ahead, Chick.
It depends on the situation, though. Like, it's universal when it's in the car, almost just universal. And it just seems like that's a situation where, yeah, there is a time and a place for certainly reacting in a certain way. There's very little nuance to be had in a lot of situations. But it seems like that's being applied more broadly and maybe more.
Just let her finish, Desired.
It just seems like it's being applied more broadly. That's just from my perspective. It seems like I heard the label Republican thrown out there. Every Democrat is just like, oh, that's a terrible person. And I don't, 10 years ago, it didn't seem to be like that.
Right. Yeah, you think social? Do you think things like social media have added to the polarization because people can feel like they can be anonymous and say these things? Does that play into it at all, do you think?
Certainly, yeah.
There's something I want to dial in on, and that's kind of like this notion of
anonymity actually does, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Jake, did I interrupt you?
Yeah, everyone's lagging a little, I think, or maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
So I kind of want to dial in on this notion of care for a minute, because I can care about what you think, but I can also disagree with what you think. And so just because I disagree with you and I walk away and I say I don't agree with you, I've heard your position, I've heard what you said, does that mean I don't care about your position?
Anything you do care, because you have a disagreement and you're willing to engage. So it's the opposite of not caring.
I'd say the fact that you're listening in the first place is an act of giving a shit.
People say that, though. I think James has a point. Like, because you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean that you minimize a person or don't care about them or don't care about the situation. You have a disagreement.
Yeah, they call that being a pussy when you do.
Yeah, there's also the question of whether you're
disagreement is also a great vehicle for progress.
Go ahead.
To actually try
Kevin.
to understand and steelman the other person's position is a difference between that and just waiting to rebut. I don't know if I came through there.
Yeah, we got you. We got you.
You just say it's the difference between good faith and bad faith.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is fair. People do assume the worst intentions, unfortunately, sometimes.
So therefore, is it better for us to assume that to give a more charitable intention to people, even though it may appear that way on the contrary, but in order to develop a good faith conversation, it makes more sense versus to go in with an adversarial position?
Oh, let me ask you this. Would you rather be in a conversation where somebody disagrees with you, in a conversation where somebody just doesn't want to talk to you at all?
Right. I'd rather be in a conversation where someone disagrees with me, because I can learn from that. That's just me.
The feeling of somebody that's just like, you're not worth my time, almost is like, oh fuck, like,
yeah. Well, that's no longer charitable.
Yep.
So,
can I ask you a question, James?
Who? Yeah.
Would you rather have someone disagree with you or disagree with something that's fundamentally a part of who you are? Like if I said I hate logisticians, they look at the world in ones and zeros and
assholes
and minuses, and statistics. They don't know anything about the essence of life. Like, what doesn't
actually? A better one I would just use is logisticians tend to think in standardized ways, and they don't always cater or tailor things appropriately. They tend to think in very standardized ways because they're dealing with a large scale of things. So
like,
that's
actually just go to flow with the example.
Sure,
dude. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like I want people to disagree. Like that's not.
That's a weird statement. That's a weird statement to say I hate logisticians because then you're just rolling over you're just stereotyping at that point. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's really a lot of meta.
Yeah, like it's not really a charitable position.
Yeah, but
it's not a charitable position to begin with, but it is useful to have something conversation with someone.
I'd like to hear what the whole example is because maybe it's tied into the end of the sentence.
Because I could be a artist. Or an art teacher, and I identify with my artist self, and I think so I'm kind of sticking with my other example, but I guess we could still use the detail one. So I think logisticians that skip the detail are ruining society because they're not paying attention to the artistic nature of whatever, and so it becomes an identity on identity thing. Wouldn't you say that that's less productive than if I was an artist? Instead of being an artist, I had the profession of artist, and you had the profession of logistician, and then we could, instead of ever having that I disagree with something that's fundamentally you, we could instead disagree with something that you hold, a position or a profession or a title.
Well, it's almost like I think that's kind of like splitting hairs at some level. It's not really necessary. Like I would say that profession or identity, it doesn't matter, right? Because how that person structures themselves is all fine. So like let's go with probably the better example. So Christian versus atheism, right? It's probably like one of the major topics that most people will tackle, or socialism versus communism. These people typically identify with these groups because they're trying to do something. There's something participatory in that. And that disagreement that arises between these two sets of people is useful because regardless of how fundamental it is, you want to have that conversation in order to either, I would say, for the sake of progress, however you would define that. But like you would have to have this, and that's actually a dialectic relationship.
So are you saying that you think the emotional discourse is required for a dialectic, or?
I mean, I never said emotional in that, but emotions are going to be in there because we're humans. You can try and divorce yourself a little bit, but you wouldn't be emotionally attached to it. You would be emotionally attached to it regardless.
Yeah, but everyone's emotionally attached to their self, their sense of self. So if I'm attacking a position you have tied with your sense of self, wouldn't the emotion in that scenario obstruct the dialectic rather than helping the conversation forward? Because instead of
not necessarily, because you need that person to be passionate about that set of ideas. Right now, the issue that I think you're trying to get at, and if I'm wrong, is when it just turns into like, I hate you, go pound sand, and oh, I hate you too, go pound sand. That's not helpful for anyone. But like, you want people to have some sense of investment into these ideas in order to have a conversation, especially a meaningful one.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think identifying with the position is necessary for passion in holding it. And
I mean, then why? Like, let's explore that. Like, why? Like, why does that not ring for you?
What? I don't know. It's just a feel like.
Okay, well, let's explore it.
Like I feel like I could argue Darth Dawkins' position with having just as much fun and enjoying it as if I was arguing for Taoism or defending my own personal moral beliefs or whatever it is. I feel like I can have equally as much fun doing all of that and be just as invested without necessitating making it personal, making it a part of me. I think I can identify as a Taoist when it's useful, or identify as an atheist or a pantheist or whatever the fuck you want to call me when it's useful. But I don't think outside of that there's a reason to ever use the I am X label, or or at least to conceptualize it as a part of myself, I should say.
Okay, well then let's explore this idea then. What do you mean by conceptualize as a part of yourself? I don't think I understand that.
So you have this sense of self, right? And when you identify the group at some level, you take that label or the thing that group stands for, or maybe the friends you've made in that group, and you take it as a part of your own sense of self and personal identity. And I think that and you build a concept of that. You build this concept of me with the group, and we're fighting another group, or X cause or whatever it is. And I think we can get a lot farther if we don't associate the group with ourselves as much as we associate ourselves with the group.
I mean, I don't want to say I know what you're talking about, because maybe this is where I'm wrong, right? So let me try and go through this again. I think you have to, at some level, identify yourself with a group, because there's going to be this sense of camaraderie. There's going to be this sense of community. There's going to be these things that come with participating in a group. Right, just like we're participating in a group now, having a discussion, right? And if someone were to come in here and change that dynamic, right, and especially change that dynamic in a negative way, they most likely would get muted, right? So because they're not in the group, they're not identifying, they're not assimilating to the group. So groups are useful and required, and they are a part of us because of who and how we associate with them.
I'm not sure if this might maybe elucidate or track, but I think what I hear is like, for you, James, let's say you were in a car accident and you woke up, from a coma in a couple months, and you could no longer do maths. You would no longer, you wouldn't cease to be who you are, and it doesn't negate your history as a logistician, but you would effectively cease to be a part of that group, at least for a time, until you could relearn those skills, right? Like, so that doesn't necessitate who you are. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I mean, yeah, I guess I think what we're also talking about here is and maybe we haven't addressed it, is the permeability of groups. And maybe that's what Dalsu is talking about too. Like, I can maybe I can remove myself out of these groups to have a conversation with these groups and enjoy that conversation or something like that, right? So, like, is that actually more accurate, like the permeability of moving between groups? But the problem is when you're not permeable anymore, like when you don't do that.
I didn't catch the end of that.
Well, when you don't do that, when you're no longer permeable, like you sit here and like you're no longer moving in and out of these cassette groups, right?
When you're no longer permeable.
And that's probably not the right word, but like you're no longer, you can no longer, the group itself is no longer, let me rephrase this. The group is no longer permeable. And what I mean by that is the people in that group have walled off themselves, right? They're not open to new ideas. They're not open to anything. They've literally built the wall, right? Build the wall. And they've isolated themselves, and now no one can enter and no one can leave. And so now it's very clear that this group is corrupting itself, essentially. And the ability to pull yourself out of that group to see that group and its relationship with other groups is very difficult.
Yes.
It's no longer there.
Yeah. So if you give,
that's a problem.
So here's a clear example. You'll find many rural people who have a worldview about other people's races, people's religions, so on and so on. As soon as those people move into a city, like for like a job, a more heavy, densely populated area, it just takes a matter of years until their opinion drastically changes. You can, an example of this being a rural person who thinks that gay people is a sin. Then they come to find out after living in the city for so long that it's actually, they thought completely differently, and that's actually not the right way to think about
it. Yeah.
So is my audio coming in?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's want to kind of weigh in on like the label thing about like atheism. Like, it literally doesn't mean anything to like be a part of like a group or like a label or anything. It just matters the position and how much evidence there is for a position.
Brother, you're pulling hairs apart. Like, it's just a category, just to make an argument's sake. You're good.
Actually, having a hard time hearing you guys. It said something about a category.
Yeah, it's just like in that context, it's just a category used for the sake of conversation.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood the debate, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a category and an example. Like, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Okay. I guess I have no argument though. Yeah, after now, I don't know. I'll find something.
You're good though.
So I think I got lost between you two guys. But if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that they will be malleable. So someone who grew up somewhere might be very flexible in their opinions, and they might not hold. Is that what, like someone from the deep south who changes their opinion, someone from the city who moves to the south, they might adopt something there? Is that what we're
happen to people that move for their jobs all the time, that they might have had some stereotypes about a certain type of race, religion, creed, sexual orientation, things like that. And when they move into a densely populated area that's more accepting of those progressive viewpoints, overwhelmingly those people change as well, given a matter of time, because they realize that the stereotypes that they had about those people aren't as flamboyant as you might have thought they were. You meet black people who probably weren't as urban as you thought they were, and you realize that it's come in all sorts of flavors.
How do you feel about we ought not associate others with the groups that they are a part of?
No, I don't think you should do that. I think you should associate them. I think if someone's gay, you should associate them and relate with them about gay people. If you try to force that stereotype on them without understanding who they are, then that's a problem, like making a conclusion about them. But if you understand the gay culture, to sizing with them when it comes to what they're talking about, those stereotypes are important. To be like, I'm a black man and I live here, and you're gonna know, oh, okay, well, I from what I understand, yeah, I kind of get that a little bit, and you can start forming a conversation around those stereotypes without actually going, oh, okay, so that means you just like X and you are just X. That's where you're kind of crossing the line. So really, you ought to watch your fucking mouth.
All right. How about I take us for a left turn and I say,
I think before you move on, I think I'd like to agree with you there but sort of in a strange way, you ought not apply guilt by association. and I don't know if you can take that to positive emotions or whatever, but guilt by association is certainly one of the worst things.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's
one individual is definitely not guilty because of something that someone else in their who happens to be in a group category with them did something bad.
Yeah. The like weapons manufacturer for the Nazis, where do they stand?
Well, I'm thinking more like if you voted for Donald Trump, okay, and somebody is a political opponent of Donald Trump, assigns guilt to you for a political position that Donald Trump had, right? Or someone else that was a Donald Trump supporter committed some heinous crime. You're also a Donald Trump supporter, therefore
you ought not rush the Capitol.
Yeah, rushing the Capitol, sure. Or you could think about, all kinds of things where somebody attributes the motive to a crime to an individual's say participation in a group, and then attributing that crime to everyone else in the group, even though it was an individual decision.
Yeah, because that's actually the main thing about like the violence of politics debate is that like if someone isn't even going to be violent and use their politics for violence, so it's going to be more indicative of personality traits rather than their political position. It's like what you see all the time.
Yeah, the political violence is an individual decision. It's not the party that they belong to. Right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, kind of. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like a little snippet or whatever, a little snippet, and the dude was like, I was walking down the aisle wearing my Navy hat, and I saw some guy wearing his MAGA hat. He said, "I support your." He said, thank you for your service." And then I replied, "Get fucked, traitor." And then like a bunch of people commented on there like, yeah. And I was just like, that's fucked up. That speaks to who you are as a character to tell the other guy, get fucked, traitor. Like, to me, I just looked at the complete opposite of like, no, the guy in the Navy hat is the asshole.
There's an important distinction there. I mean, and I'm not going to say like all Trump supporters are one way. I mean, regardless of political affiliation, but you can definitely infer something about a person's character if they openly acknowledge that they are a white supremacist or a white nationalist, right? You can begin to infer that there may be some like really negative repercussions to what that person actively believes. So, I mean, I wouldn't say the proper thing would be to insult or assault them, but at the same time, it's not an idea that you should just be completely tolerant of,
Yeah, but not necessarily, because there's a cult element to it where pretty much pretty much anyone can be kind of brought into a cult and then can be like brainwashed. So if someone usually when people are in those ideologies, it's because there's a lot of brainwashing going on and they're not even able to know what they're even doing. So it's not necessarily indicative of bad personality traits. It could just be kind of more vulnerable personality traits that you find.
Yeah.
But how do we get to brainwashing?
When you have a filthy mind.
I guess one thing I would say is you also have to use I think that kind of what Kevin was alluding to. You also have to use those group identity traits, right, to identify, or you'll have some idea of what they're doing. So, for example, if you're part of a gang, let's say the Blood, the Crips, whatever, I have an idea of what you're doing, right, because you're part of this group.
I think it's a safety security thing. You want to know where you come from, and that leads us to safety and security.
Yeah, definitely. So associating with a group usually will give you certain attributes that you partake in. But it's still, I'd point out, it's still not 100%. You can have people who are fooled, like someone who thinks that white nationalists are good for whatever reason. But yeah, definitely. And like I have been saying the whole time, words are tools and they have usages, but they don't have an inherent meaning in and of themselves. So as long as we don't always associate the name of the thing with like a Republic or a Trump supporter being someone who always supports Trump, or the abuelita who was doing the laundry for Hitler, as long as we don't say she's responsible for murdering Jews, like there's a line that I think needs to be drawn somewhere, and it's very hard to say exactly how.
I mean, I think it's easy to say that you can't assign guilt just by group identity. You can't prosecute an entire group at one time.
Yeah, especially.
I think that's entirely fair on both sides.
Definitely. All right, are we ready for our left turn? The left turn time.
Yeah.
If you found out right now, like it was revealed to you through X means, that there's a demon who's creating this illusion that you see as the material world around you, what ought you do with that knowledge that the entire world around you is actually being created by this demon?
Well, wait, there's a lot to unpack there. Cause, like, can we prove the demon exists? Because otherwise we're going to sound batshit crazy if we come out with this, right?
Well, let's say...
And then, is there anything we can actually do to stop the demon?
I would say it doesn't appear so. The demon shows up right now, and he implants the knowledge in your mind that he exists and that he's doing all of this, and then disappears from your sensory perception, and you're just stuck with that knowledge inherently implanted in your brain.
So we have confirmation that we're the brain in the vat, essentially, from
yeah, pretty much. As far as you know, it's just you and this demon who's manufacturing all of reality. What ought you do about it? Or with that knowledge?
I'd say you ought to try your best to forget about it at that point, or I guess look for a way to kill the demon, but...
Then what world would you have?
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't have anything left after that, right?
I don't know, like...
Dow looking good.
Join me up here, Bruno. We can be sexy.
Oh man, I look like shit.
Cold here.
Yeah, one definitely ought not come out in public with this knowledge unless you can prove it, because you'll probably end up in a padded room somewhere.
That actually baffles me. People actually believe that. It really does.
Yeah, I don't think that people actually believe that.
Oh, they do. They fucking do, mate.
No, well, the flat Earth Society is actually, it's like a game of trolls. In case you haven't been clued in on this, the people don't really believe that, but it's an exercise in how well you can argue for something that's absolutely absurd. And the better you are at it, the higher you rise in the ranks of the Flat Earth Society.
There's a Netflix I think movie or whatever on flat Earth theory. You do know that, right?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. People go to every.
They actually believe it. The guy was like, "Hey man, You can see Seattle right there. So it's the Earth is flat. It's like, what? Every curved line at a point is a straight line. So that's a stupid argument, you know. So like, I don't know, man. I mean, the Greeks figured this out like 4,000 years ago, for God's sakes, you know, using a well.
So you've been had. Sorry.
I hope so, man.
Yeah, it's a whole exercise. It's an exercise in trolling.
I see. I hope so.
There was another video from the same guy that made the Flat Earth movie where he was talking about how ancient aliens are actually who populated the Earth. So I have a hard time buying both of those at the same time.
Did you say how Asian aliens populated?
No, ancient aliens. Yeah,
it's funny.
So what ought we do if we're a brain in a vat? You know, and that leads me to something I've been thinking about. So once you know that your entire world is created by someone that's outside observing for you, yeah, you know, does the demon think that you're conscious? Does the demon know that you're conscious?
Well, you must be if you're interacting with it, right? But I mean,
I don't know. How about if I created an AI program, and then I let it know, and then I discovered that, you know, maybe this AI is self-aware, and then I tell it about how, yeah, no, you're just a computer in a box, dude. How's that any different?
Oh, I forgot to turn my volume back on for YouTube. They weren't hearing me. You guys are talking in the realm of possibility. So all you really have to say when you're talking about in this realm, if someone's trying to, you know, it's fun to come up with the artistic ways we might get away from this demon. But essentially what you could say is that, you know, in this imaginary realm, this realm of possibilities, anything is possible, including the demon could trick you into thinking you're conscious by just having you see a cinema play out just through, like, you're now just an ocular lens watching it play out, and the trick is to trick you into feeling like you are conscious, but that's just the trick. So you can paint all of these fucked up, weird, crazy scenarios of where the demon's sitting inside your brain on the edge of a synapse and is affecting things in your thinking to a point where you are thinking, even if it's logically consistent on how you understand logic, it's just completely dead wrong.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would be very relevant. There's no
right.
That's out of
yeah, you're right, Kevin. That's kind of the point. It's like it's like someone who pops up and says, you know, we could be in the Matrix. Well, until there's proofs or evidence to apply to this, we basically can say, yeah, okay, it's possible, and it's also possible that Michael Jackson's flying around farting turtle shells out his ass in space. That's possible too. But it's fun to think about in the realm of possibility, but it has nothing to do with the realm of plausibility and probability. That is the scientific endeavor. But people get those realms mixed up when we're talking about this, and then they think one is arguing for X when really we're just talking about what's possible, which is essentially anything Shakespeare could write down on a piece of paper.
I found the dilemma somebody brought up earlier pretty interesting, and why a lot of people into AI are really worried about our machines or devices becoming like self-aware or something like that. And when I've seen like there's like Siri and Alexa, and they appear to be like pretty competent as far as their